turn on the live transcription. See, these are the things I'm learning. Someone else usually turns them on. I'm like, oh, I got to turn those live transcriptions on. So I'm going to enable those. And
Coloring's good too. I like the background.
oh, that's actually just a green screen. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
And
had a quick question before you get started.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I keep going to the join webinar link, and it keeps asking me for a meeting passcode.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, apparently I sent out the wrong link. So hopefully what people will do is go to my website and go from there. So
I did. I went to the website, and lo and behold, it's still asking me for a meeting passcode.
huh. Now, with the link you shouldn't have to have a passcode, but
I'm not on your website. I'm on my husband's computer at the moment talking to you, but I wanted to get on my computer to talk to you. But I need a passcode.
well, I can tell you the passcode is
Okay.
it's a funny one. Next week they're gonna start being my old password. Dan's Tutor, I think is what it is. But
Yes, that might be the next
this one is a strange one, a random one, and they will be hopefully going forward next week. It won't be these random ones anymore, but it's a small x, capital Y, 87, small n, 1, O. I'm sorry, capital O, small y, capital G, capital T. So. Yeah, but if you use the link, you should be able to get
I tried
it.
it and it didn't work.
I couldn't get it. I almost left because it kept saying it's not until February 24th.
Oh,
Right.
I probably put I bet you I know what I did is I put the next week's in. Yep. Oops. Okay.
And then I went to the email and got it that way.
Okay. Yep. Sorry about
I'll
that.
give it a try. Thank you.
All right, let's get started here. I'm going to share my screen, and we should be good here. Switch camera, and one more. There's my green screen. Nope, one more. And there we go. All right, so we're good, right? We can see me. All right, and I'm going to turn on the my keynote presentation here. There we are. All right, so welcome to my AMA, Ask Me Anything. And this week what I did is, or last week, a couple weeks ago, I implemented a new, I'll go with a little bit of housework here, a new system for my AMAs as these things are growing, which is awesome. But also, as they grow, it turns into becoming a little bit unmanageable. And they were becoming 2 hours. One of them was over 2 hours, not much over 2 hours, but it just got to be a little bit long. And a couple cases probably when I was a little under the weather, but I lost my voice, this, that, and the other. And so what I decided to do going forward, and I kind of knew something like this would happen, is what do you do you can't have these things go on for 3 hours, and you have to limit some of the questions and all that. So what I did is I now have 2 registrations for my my AMAs. And the early bird registration, it might be renamed because it's not really an early bird, but it is a limited registration. That's the one that you can ask a question. So when you sign up with my early bird registration, there's a spot where you can submit a question, and then I can do a little bit of homework and research it a little bit. And the second one, that one's limited to 10 right now. And as I figure this out, I might open it up a little bit more. I think I could probably handle a couple more, but we'll just kind of wait and see and figure this out. The second one is an unlimited registration, and with that, it's unlimited. And hopefully what this does is this will limit my questions that are pre, and then I can also have a little bit more time for Q&A, and also keep it at a manageable time. So the idea is if you have a question, register early. It also could, and I only say this could, open the door for possibly hosting more of these. If I can get these down to a manageable time, what I might be able to do is do an AMA once a week and then do a class every other week, or start doing something maybe on Saturdays for people that can't make it on the weekdays. Not every Saturday, but it could open the door for a few more of these if I can get it down to a manageable time. So that's one way that I'm doing that is. You're going to see now with these classes and webinars, there's going to be an early bird registration. That's the one that you'll want to ask your questions on. So that's what's new so far. And with that, let's go to
To get to the early bird registration, do we have to go to the website?
When you register, you can go to the website. Of course, everyone can always email me, and that's fine, because that's what I would also get is people emailing me with questions. And again, that's fine. It's just that I want to get to the people that actually ask the questions first, and that was getting to be too much, and I wouldn't have time. I started missing some questions and things like that. So the idea is a perfect world, register for my site, and then you're going to get the link, the correct link going forward, hopefully. And you're going to get the link for the Zoom class. You're going to have a spot where you can ask your question. And if you don't have a question, don't register for the early bird. Leave that open for somebody that has a question. I know a lot of times, people come, they don't necessarily have a specific question. So just don't use the early bird registration. And then, as that fills up, if it gets to 10 right now, then that one is closed and everybody has to register the unlimited. And of course, like I said, you can always email me and I'll try to get those questions too. Whole idea is trying to keep this to a manageable time and make it to where I can do this in the future a little bit more often possibly. So
Dan, your voice and your face and everything isn't in sync again. It was before.
Okay. So, all right, I'll have to, and the recording, it'll be fine, and it won't be so big deal when we're going through this. Apparently, I didn't fix it correctly yet. Like I say, there's a lot of little things that are going on with this, so shoot.
3/4 of a second off.
3/4 of a second off. And the way that it goes is by frame. So what I have to do is tell my eCam that I'm going to try it here. And
it's interesting though that in the list of members on the right-hand side, your little icon there with your picture in it is fine sync-wise. It's just a big screen.
So here's the story behind that. I mentioned this I think last week or the week before. So the way that I do this is I share my screen. So right now you're looking at a shared screen, even though it's just me and my camera. And the reason why I do that is because you get a higher resolution. So with Zoom, when you share your screen, what it does is it adds a slight delay to it. So there's just a slight little. My audio is not delayed, but because I'm using a couple cameras and all that, there's just like a 5 frame second. Then that's what you're seeing. When I don't share my screen, it's perfect. So that little thumbnail that you're seeing is not a shared screen. It's directly from the camera. The problem with that is Zoom, to preserve bandwidth and all that is limited to 320 dpi. Really, really, really low res. So I know a few of you probably remember back in December, you were telling me that you couldn't read my screen because that's what I was using. And they implemented this in November, December. So it's a really low res, but it's really fast and good bandwidth and all that. But it doesn't work well for me because I want to show you what's going on with my computers. If someone has a question, I want to demo it on the computer or the iPad and all that. So that 320 is no good for that. So I have to go through this little thing here, and that is what is causing the delay because I'm doing the shared screen kind of thing. Now, maybe what I should do is email. At the end, if you want to stick with me, we can experiment with this a little bit. I don't want to do it at the beginning. We'll just put up with it because
Just look you in the eye.
Yeah, right. Just look me in the eye. And at the end, if you want to stay on, maybe what I can do is experiment with this, and you can help me try to figure out a couple of things to see if I can fix it and the resolution and all that. So that would be good. Okay. So for those of you that are new, I got to go through my little spiel here. I'm Dan Wasink, owner, trainer, everything with Dan's Tutorials. I've been in the publishing industry for over 30 years, most of it magazine publishing, but probably the last 10 years it has been online. Prior to doing this Dan's Tutorials, I was also a genius at Apple, and I came out with a couple of different apps, tutorial apps, ironically. And when you work at Apple, you can't come out with your own app, so I had to quit Apple and do my own thing, and that's basically how I ended up here today. Is Apple came out with their App Store, I submitted a few apps, and it worked, and I decided to just go out on my own. And with Apple's infinite wisdom, the all-knowing Apple decided that they did not want to have any more tutorials on the App Store, so they cut that out, and now I have to do everything online. So that's where I'm at today. It's actually, a good thing in that, with COVID, you always look for the, the silver lining kind of thing. With everyone getting more comfortable with Zoom and all that, I think what this is doing is this is opening the door for me to hold these classes. This was never on the radar 3 years ago. I wouldn't have known how to do it. And, Apple taking me out of the App Store. I still have a couple of things in there, but I haven't submitted anything in the last 2 years. And with, COVID happening, everybody getting online, we get a certain comfort level and we figure out our new tools. And, the idea being that, maybe down the road, I could also see myself, I kind of pictured in my head as doing like one-to-ones and things like that. You look for the silver lining, and I see one kind of coming out there. But I also do local tech support, or tech support for a local school. The other two people that I work with who are full-time, I work about 10 to 12 hours a week. The other two people that I work with, they're both full-time, and I worked with them both over at Apple. They were both geniuses, so this school has basically 3 geniuses. And it is all Apple technology, MacBook Airs and iPads and all that good stuff. So they asked me, it's about a mile away from here, they've asked me for several years, can you help us out? And I finally said yes. And now 4 years going strong, about 10 to 12 hours a week, but it's good to get me out. And also it's really nice. Charlie, who is my boss, he's one of these, I call him a workaholic. And he has never taken he's 40-something, never taken a vacation kind of thing. And when I go to Disney, he's a Star Wars nut, so I FaceTime him over at the Star Wars thing there. And he's leaving for Disney tomorrow, and I have to fill in for him all next week. So I'm very happy about that, to get him to, his wife is very excited. He's a little nervous, but he'll enjoy it. So that's kind of what I do. So I basically am, surrounded by Apple technology for the most part, and I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have my soapboxes every once in a while. There's certain things I don't like, App Store, but I do love Apple for the most part and everything that they do. So that's me. Now let's get started. I'm going to ask everyone to, if you have any background noise, I can mute everyone. I'm just going to leave it open right now, but don't be surprised if all of a sudden dog barking, anything like that, phone rings, stuff like that, I'll go and mute everyone. I do like to keep it relatively open, so it is a one-man show, so if you start chatting, I might miss it. If you raise your hand, I might miss it, but if you yell, I will hopefully be able to help you. I do see, Chuck, that you have a question on Tab Forms 5, so let's reserve that to the end until I get through these questions, and then we can take a look at, I've been using Tab Forms 5 for several years.
I didn't make the 10 limit.
Okay, yep. We'll see, hopefully we can get to it. All right, so the first question I have from Robert or Bob is, what shortcuts? What is it? Is it Monterey only? And what are some use case scenarios for it? So shortcuts is Monterey only, starting out with that. And essentially what it is, it's the new Apple script. So for people that are familiar with the Mac, Apple's script has been around forever. And essentially what you can do with Apple's, it's a scripting language. When you do this, I want my computer to do this, that, and the other. You can do if-thens and that's and, all kinds of things with it. So what Apple did on the iPhone and the iPad is a few years ago, they bought a company, an app developer that came up with that same concept for the iPhone and the iPad. And they called it Shortcuts. So Shortcuts have been available on the iPad and the iPhone for a few years now. And now it is available on the Mac. And the whole idea, which is what Apple is kind of doing, is they are, for the most part, cross-platform. So obviously the Mac can do more than what the iPad and the iPhone is, but on the simple scripting, it does sync across all your different devices. So now Shortcuts is available on the Mac, the iPad, and the iPhone. So I'm going to show you on my Mac here, and basically you're going to see I have here this little icon, and this is Shortcuts. It's located in your applications folder. That's all it is it is an application. And it replaced AppleScript. If you have some old Apple scripts, the Apple scripts will open up in Shortcuts. So it'll convert it, any Apple scripts that you had, but you are no longer going to have the Apple script editor, anything like that. But it's supposed to be easier. AppleScript could get you're scripting, it's coding, a crude form of coding, but it is coding, and Shortcuts is the same way. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that you can do with it, just so you can get an idea. And then I'll show you, how you can see what other people are doing, because you can actually take apart other people's code. If anyone knows anything about coding or has coded, most of the time what you're doing is you're piecing apart other people's code to see how they do it and taking pieces from theirs and putting it into your own. Nobody ever comes up with original code so much. So I'm going to open up Shortcuts here, and let's just first do a real quick shortcut so you can kind of see how it works. So basically all I have to do is go over here to All Shortcuts, and when I click on the plus here, I start adding my actions. So, here's some of the things that I can do. I can send a message, open up an app, choose from a menu. You can see you can get a pretty granular. You can go into scripting here. This is where you can if, then, that, the other, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to keep it real basic, just so you have an idea. So I'm just going to go with suggestions here, and let's open up an app. So I just double click that. There's my app. Which app do I want to open? Let's just go with the App Store. So right now it's just going to open. When I run this, what it's going to do is open up the App Store. So basically all I did is I created something that opens up the App Store. But now let's say I also wanted to, when I do that, for whatever reason, I want to set the volume to 50%. So now when I open up the App Store, it's also going to set my volume to 50%. And I want to show an alert. I'll just leave it at do you want to continue, but you could go in here and click it and change it. So now when I run this script, it's actually going to do these three things. So now let's run it. All I have to do is just click on the play button here, and we can see it opened it up. It set my volume, you didn't see it, but it set my volume to 50%, and I have my notification here. I'm going to click on OK. So that, basically that's what you can do. Now you can take this further and you can add ifs, if this is, if the volume is at 100%, turn it down to 50%, else keep it at whatever it is. You like say, it's a scripting language, and all you have to do is just there you go. So now if, do you want to continue? And you can say yes or no, and, you can get pretty robust with it. Once I close it, there is that script that I just added. So basically, I can just click on this and it'll just do what it needs to do. Now, if you want to, what I recommend doing is taking a look at some of the other shortcuts and seeing how they work. And all you have to do for this is go to the gallery. There's a number of different shortcuts here. and, just take a look at a few of these. So let's go, I'm just going to go with this one here. How many days until? So all I have to do is just click on the plus. I put in my date. So let's go with July 4, 2022. 4th of, oops, not dollar, 4th of July. Add the shortcut. So now I've just added that shortcut, and if I go to my shortcuts here, when I click on the play button here, it's going to tell me that it is 4 months, 16 days, 13 hours, and 33 seconds. But that doesn't really tell you anything. What you can do is, instead of clicking on the play button here, what you can also do is double click this, and now you can actually see the script. So now you can see how they built this. So you can pick it apart and see how things worked. So here it gets the specified date, get the time in between that, and then show it as text. So that's basically how they built this. So if we go to the gallery here, there is one here that I think there's one that was had a lot of steps into it. Maybe it's 30. So this here. What is a shortcut? Now I could play this and it'll play, just go through a bunch of steps, but I can also just double click on it here. Don't hit the play button. And now you can actually see, there's quite a bit to this. So if you're into scripting and you want to play around with a little bit of programming, this is where shortcuts can come into play. On top of that, applications, much like AppleScript, applications are, they have to have it built in. You can't do this with every application. They have to be shortcut capable or AppleScript capable. But that eCam software, which is what I use for all of my stuff here, the eCam software, the beta that I played with last week that may have caused the crash, don't know. In addition to working with the audio, trying to, fix that delay, what it also does is it has a built-in shortcut. What I can do is I can create a shortcut that says, put my do not disturb on, or put the focus on that I'm, doing this, and, turn the lights down low, and, basically have it do a bunch of stuff. So when I start recording or start that eCam software, start my webinar, what it will do is it'll run that shortcut. So these applications are starting to get them built in to where, you can incorporate shortcuts from within an app as well. So that's basically what a shortcut is. What's that?
Would those shortcuts take the place of tabs? Like if you have a tab that you want to open all the time?
You could, yeah. You could go as far as if you have a number of tabs in Safari, what you would do is search for Safari here, and you could say open URLs. So basically what I did here is I just opened up, I searched for, these are all the scripts that Safari has available to it. Like I said, not all apps have scripting built in them, and it depends on which app it is, what you can do with them, right? So this one I can open up the URL. So what I can do is I can go open URLs, and then I just put in the URL here, and when I click on the play button, or when I go to open URLs here, click on the play button, what it will do is it'll open up all those URLs. And then you're going to see it's up here in our menu bar, and I can just go over here.
That's what that is.
And you're going to see menu bar here. So let's say you use that open URLs a lot. What you can do is put this in the menu bar. I just drag it over to the menu bar, and now there it is. I will say you'll probably get frustrated if you're not used to coding. I can code a little bit. I took basic language, but I can still hold my own pretty good. When I was doing the apps, I could get I had somebody do probably 80 to 90% of what I needed to get done, and then I would always do the last 20%. I know enough to be dangerous, but it gets frustrating. Because with coding, when you're doing any kind of coding like this, everything has to follow these steps. And if it can't follow that step, all of a sudden it just breaks. So it can get frustrating, but it also can be challenging. And in my case, I do find it enjoyable. And you could also, find some enjoyment if you like that kind of thing. On the iPad, it is here as well. Let's see here. If I go to shortcuts, there it is. And you're going to see there's my open URLs that I just created on the Mac. Here it is. So I could use this on my iPad as well. Now, the how many days, I could also use this on my iPad. If I were to click on play, there it is. So that's the reason why they got rid of AppleScript, so you could run these. But some of these obviously are not going to work, because they're Mac only or iPad only. But for the most part, you can do the same thing on the iPad and on the iPhone. Go to the gallery, see what you like, add it, double click on it, and peel it apart and just see how people build stuff, kind of thing. So that's what shortcuts are. Yeah.
Dan, have you ever heard of IFFT?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Is that connected this way?
yeah. So if IFTT is if this,
Then that.
then that. Yep. And it's a website, for those of you who don't know, IFTT. If this, then that. And what this will do is this is kind of like an extension of shortcuts. I don't know if the IFTT app works with shortcuts. I would assume that I think there's an app that you download. If it doesn't, it probably will eventually. I think what I would call it's an extension. So with if this, then that, if this, then that, IFTTT. So what you can do with this is if the weather is, if you have a nest, if the weather is 28 degrees. Now the Nest will do this automatically already, but anyway, you could, if the weather is 22 degrees, then turn the heat on. If it's raining outside, make sure, I don't know, something's happening. You can connect all your different devices together. You could have it, some people will have it, if there's a weather alert, tell the Sonos speakers to do something. If there's a weather alert, have one of your lights that change color into red. Or if there's a tornado, I'm picking on weather, but there's all kinds of different, if I go to explore here, if I upload something to Instagram, make sure that it also goes to this, that, and the other. And as you can see, if this, then that, that's the IFTT. The robot, I do use Wise cameras, so I can have it, if it detects something, go and send me a text or something, all kinds of things. So yes, IFTT, it's similar. I think what I would call the shortcuts is more like device. Do something with this application where IFTT works on a little bit bigger scale, like with all these different platforms that are out there, Nest and Amazon Alexa, and all these different things, and you can have them all communicate with each other, and basically have them do what you want to do. All right, so that is what.
Dan, can I ask one question on the?
Go for it.
Shortcut?
Yeah.
I don't have that app on either my MacBook Air or my MacBook Pro. Do I have to go?
You have, yeah. It used to be where you. I thought it came on the stuff, but I must have installed it myself. Yeah, it used to be where you had to download it, and apparently that still is. I thought they installed it on newer stuff, but yeah, just go to the App Store and download it. It's free. It's Apple. It is owned by Apple, and maybe on the newer computers it's installed.
Well, I have one that's 6 months old and I didn't
Oh,
have it, but
okay.
I get rid of that new.
Yeah. So I believe they introduced it in Big Sur. But yeah, just go to the App Store and download it.
Good,
It's free.
thank you.
All right. So that's shortcuts. It's pretty neat. I have it in my list of things to come up with a tutorial on, but it can get unruly pretty fast because you can build some really complicated stuff. But maybe what I should do is kind of like my GarageBand. In the back of my head, I still have an idea for GarageBand, and as Fran knows, I bought a keyboard, so maybe I could come up with something. But it's so powerful, but maybe I should come up with some basic stuff for it. So, all right. Next, we have two-factor authentication. What is it? Is it an app? And what is the service Authy? So for those that are not familiar with two-factor authentication, essentially it makes your online accounts more secure. And how it does this is by two factors. And when you enter in your username and password, that's considered a one factor. So somebody could go into, if they knew your username, which is a lot of times your email address. On my case, on my site, it's your email address. And if you use a password that somebody could easily guess, you can get into the site. You can get into all kinds of things. That username and password. Now on things like my site, it's not that bad because I don't have any financial. I don't keep any credit card information or anything like that. But with banks and all that, you really got to be, or even Amazon where you can order stuff. You have to be a little careful with that. So, the idea was come up with a different password for every site. So then if something gets breached, they won't be able to use that same password because we all know that how we use the same password on multiple sites. I still do that. I still have some sites that use the same password. So what they came up with was two-factor authentication. So now in addition to entering your password, the next thing it does is it adds a second factor to it. It basically adds, it sends you a text. In most cases, it'll send you a text on your phone, and then you have to enter in that, I'm gonna go and mute, yep. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna mute everyone, so if you have a question, you'll have to unmute. Okay, so I'm not muted, okay, good. So basically what happens now is if you go into a banking site as an example, when you enable two-factor authentication, in most cases you have to enable it. It's not on by default, although you're starting to see it more and more. What it does is it sends you that code that we've all seen on our phone, and then we have to enter that code into the site. So we enter in our password, and then we also have to enter in that code. And the idea behind this is when someone has your username and password, they try to get into your site, into that banking site, they're not going to be able to get in unless they have your cell phone as well, which, is going to be pretty rare. They're not going to be able to get into that site. So two-factor authentication was great. Well, you know how hackers are. They're pretty crafty. So they can, basically take your SIM card data, and they can actually, if someone was really good, they'd be able to get that second, that code that comes across the phone. Now, obviously, I don't think it's going to happen to the general public like you, me, or for my wife or anything like that. But depending on where you are in society, I mean, it could happen. They could target you, and when that code comes across on your phone, they can get that, and then they're going to be able to enter in your banking account or anything like that. So two-factor authentication works great, and it is great. I don't mean to scare anybody. It's not secure. It is highly secure, but in some cases, it's still not. It still has its vulnerabilities. So the next phase that they're coming out with on two-factor authentication, you're seeing this with Google, is they don't have you enter a code. If you're using Google for authentication as an example, they want you to open up a Google app on your phone. So with that, there's nothing going across the cell phone, so they're not going to be able to snip that, grab that 6-digit code or 4-digit code and enter it in because it never went to your cell phone. Basically, they're taking it through the SMS or whatever. So that's where applications like Authy come in. Authy is an app that you can download for free, and instead of opening up a Google app, what you can do is open up the Authy app, and it'll approve that that it is you. It'll prove that it is you because you're opening it up on your phone. So it's just it's the next step. It's the next level. You don't see app authentication too often yet. I think Google is probably the big one that's pushing it, but you are starting to see it more and more, as the cell phone kind of thing is getting to be more vulnerable. So, yeah, someone had a question?
Yeah, I have a question, Dan. Frequently, when I have two-factor authentication
Yeah.
for a lot of things, and there are, in my evaluation, an unreliable method of getting the thing to my phone. I get it. I don't get that. It says, okay, enter the code. I'm on the site
Yeah.
to enter a code, and I can't find the code from messages. I can't find the code in mail. It doesn't go.
Yeah.
So, and then, like I think you only have 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Put it in, and then boom, you need to get another one or send another one.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't go. So I'm not sure what's happening with that.
Well, that's where I believe, I don't use Authy, but I did some, this is the other nice thing about keeping these questions, a little bit more limited, is I can do a little more research on them. So I don't use Authy or anything like that, but I wanted to learn about it. So I read up and watched a few videos earlier today on this. And I believe that would solve that problem. From what I understand is you would use Authy, and let me go to my computer here. It is just, let's see, Authy, A-U-T-H-Y. It seems to be, from what I understand from my, it's made by Twilio. It's a reputable company. Essentially, what you can do with Authy then is it keeps it. You don't have the 15 minutes. Basically, you only have to do it one time. Then when you go back into that site, you can verify it with Authy even if you're not online. You don't have to wait for that code. So it kind of takes that step out of it because you've already verified yourself with the app. So what you might want to do is try something like Authy. It's really simple. You're going to see here they have some great guides on how it all works. So what I did is I searched for Apple as an example, and I click on this. This is actually just great for research, and they say, here's how two-step authentication works on Apple. And then I went into, Google works a little bit different. So I'm like, okay, let me check out Google. Because each one of these companies are doing it a little bit differently. They're all doing two-factor, but they all do it in their own way. And what Authy does, and there are other ones that do the same thing. Authy is not the only one. It's just that I think it was Betty asked, about Authy. So when I click on Gmail here, it tells you exactly how to do it. And then it goes back and says, really what you should be doing is using our authenticator app like Authy. Then you only have to do it one time, from what I understand. You would only have to do this one time. And then let's say you go into a Google app and it asks for that authentication a week later. Well, you're waiting for that code, like you said. You wouldn't have to wait for that code because this app remembers all that stuff. So then you don't have to worry about that. So their site is pretty good. I really liked those guides, and it's just go to authy.com, and you're going to see these guides here. And even if you don't use it, it's a great resource for figuring out how two-factor authentication works for a specific site. You could type in Facebook and TikTok and all that, and it has it all in there. Really nice guides. So, yeah, somebody.
Dan, does that work on the Mac and on your iOS devices, both?
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and if you share, so then they get into it, I would recommend watching a couple of videos because you're dealing with passwords, so you want to have a little bit of a understanding of it. But once you authenticate it on one device, so let's say I install it on my Mac, I want to make sure that I set it up to share. You don't have to set it up to share that. So then, if you go on your iPhone or your iPad, it's not going to share that Authy information. I am not a super secret agent spy. I don't really have that much information. So I would recommend sharing it with your other devices. So then all you have to do is set it up on one device, and it'll work on all of your devices then. Mm-hmm.
Dan, I have another question about the two-factor authentication.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it. Unlike Frank, I do get the code easily, but I get like 3 or 4 of them. And I was dealing with Canada Revenue Agency, and I said, well, how am I supposed to know which one of those codes? They say you're supposed to use the last one.
Last one, right?
Is that true?
You're supposed to use the last one. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, what it is they send that code out, and it might take, we are in this world of, where's my, instant gratification? I need that code. I go and enter it in. And sometimes it might take 5 minutes for them to, I don't know what their service they're using or anything like that, but, patience. Patience. So, you might have to wait, 5. Now, if you have to wait, if it's longer than 5-10 minutes, sometimes I will go and say, send me another code. But I've been down that road as well. And
yeah, well, you know what I got around that now, because it gives you on that two-factor authentication, it gives you a choice: call me or text me. So now
Yep.
I have the call me.
Right.
And it's just a matter of going to the phone, and they give you that, and then they hang up. So that's
Right.
really a good.
yeah, that's another way. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah.
There's another app besides Authy. It's called Duo Mobile.
Yeah.
DUO Mobile. And that's what Fairleigh Dickinson University uses, which I'm affiliated with. And it works very well.
Does it?
Also,
Yeah.
to do
Is
that
it?
verification.
Yeah. They're like I said, there are other apps that
DUO.
okay. DUO.
Duo Mobile.
There it is. Duo two-factor. It's a plugin. So I could put this on my site because I use WordPress. So essentially, there are other ones out there as well. And the whole idea is basically just protecting yourself. And, as we all know, passwords are a pain in the butt. But we also know that those hackers are pretty crafty, and we have two-factor authentication now. Probably in 5 years, it's going to be five-factor authentication. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll figure out a way to trace the hacker back to the address he lives in.
Well, Microsoft, I haven't really read too much on this, but Microsoft is experimenting with not even having a password. I'm not sure how it works, but essentially the idea of having a password is eventually is going to be gone. Somehow they're going to do it another way. Don't know. So. Mm-hmm.
Token key.
Yeah.
Do it visual. It's like the IRS's Chinese use.
Right. All right. So Fran got a new computer, and she is wondering, what are the must-haves? Are there any settings that you would set, anything like that? And in all honesty, I don't really have anything any must-haves. I have some settings that some people have heard me talk about that I do, but for the most part, I don't do, there's not any privacy settings or anything like that on a Mac that I need to set up to make sure that it's all good and good. I'm pretty confident the Mac is pinned down. I do not use File Vault, although I think it's on by default now. I don't use their firewall, anything like that. Because the Mac is good in itself. I will say, there's a couple of things that I do, and it's only to make my Mac easier for me to use. And so I'll just talk about a couple of those things. If I go to my system preferences, a couple things that I like to set. First of all, being that it's a laptop, I am a huge trackpad fan. And the thing that I do here is I turn off. I'm not a fan of force click, and this is on by default. What force click does is when you press down on the trackpad, and you press a little bit harder, you get a second thing. If anyone has an Apple Watch or if anyone had an Apple Watch from several years ago, they had their haptic touch. So what you could do is you could go to the Apple Watch, and when you pressed on it, it did something, but then when you pressed further, it did something else. That's haptic feedback. And they got rid of it on the Apple Watch because it was too confusing. It didn't, it sounds great in concept, but the implementation and people were confused. It's just like, we don't need that. That's kind of how I feel that force click. You don't need it. All of a sudden you press just a little bit too hard on that trackpad and your computer's doing something else.
Oh,
Dan, does your computer, does your Mac, let me rephrase that, does a Mac require an antivirus program?
No, I don't use any type of antivirus program. Nope. The other thing that I do, I am, over at the school, the other two people, they can't get over this concept. I do use tap to click. I love it because I can just tap my keyboard. So if I go here, and I don't have to push it. I can just tap this, and it closes it. But it's an art to it, But man, do I love that. You don't have to physically click it. They can't get past that. So that's my trackpad settings. The other thing that I do is I go, and people have heard me talk about this, to mission control, and I go to the hot corners, and you can see I didn't set it up on this one yet. I don't use this on a daily basis, but I'm going to set it up now. I show the desktop when I move my cursor in the lower left-hand corner. So now, when this is on, I need to get at the desktop. All I have to do is just move my cursor, and I'm at the desktop. Move my cursor back, it goes back. Those are a couple of, I put my applications in the dock and things like that, but probably those two are the ones that I, when I don't have those enabled. The trackpad I get frustrated with because it's doing something I don't want it to do. And the hot corners is just a convenience factor. I use that. We have 20 million windows open. I could have my calendar, all this, how it works with these Macs. You have 20 million windows open. There it all, get to the desktop. So
oh, that's good.
I would say those are my absolute top 3 favorite or top 2 favorite tips, what I need to do. There are other things, but as far as antivirus, I don't use antivirus. On the Mac, it's still a small market share, and they typically don't go after the Mac. You don't read about too many viruses. You don't read about any viruses. And I will even go as, now this was 15 years ago, but when I worked at the Apple store, they didn't use antivirus on their computers there either. So typically what antivirus software does, you have to be careful with them. They are scammers, and they slow down your computer. They are a pain to get rid of. I remember working as a genius, and people would put them on their computer, and the only way that you could get them, you had to go in there with coding and take them out. Or in some cases, you actually had to wipe the computer. If you have to wipe the computer to remove something, that tells you there's something wrong there. Like I was saying with the App Store, there are antivirus software that you can buy on the App Store for the iPad and the iPhone. Absolutely useless. Absolutely, they don't do anything on the iPad and the iPhone because Apple has that all gated so hard, and they have to approve everything. All they are is a money grab, and there's some buzz every 6 months or so with developers like here, this is where my soapbox. I do not like Apple's App Store policies at all. And what they will do is they will put an antivirus on there where all of a sudden you're paying this company, and I'm not exaggerating, $99 a week to get rid of, because they sucker you into it. And then, it's just, Apple is making millions off of it. You can just Google it. It's antivirus. On the iPad, the iPhone, absolutely not. On the Mac, you could. Bitdefender, I think, is a good one. I would, because you can easily install it and you can easily remove it. So that's my thing on antivirus. But
Hey Dan,
Yeah.
I'm also about to get a new MacBook next week,
okay,
and I've been thinking about how I want to set it up from the get-go. I've been thinking about VPNs to kind of hide where I'm going, but
Yep.
I think with Apple doing a lot of it's stopping the tracking across the web, so maybe
Yep.
VPN is less needed.
Yeah, so with VPNs, and if you're using, do you pay for iCloud?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it's in beta right now. I don't think they released it yet. Apple's coming out with their own very, 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 very basic VPN. As long as you use Safari, what it's going to do is it will go through their own servers, and it's going to hide everything that you're doing. No one's going to be able to track you. It's in beta right now. It's going to come to everybody that pays for iCloud. It is not a VPN in the true sense of the term VPN. A VPN, basically what that does when you install it on your computer, it creates a tunnel where all your traffic travels through that tunnel and no one can get into that tunnel. I do have a VPN. I don't use it all. I'm not using it right now. But when I turn my VPN on, any marketer or anybody that's trying to track where I'm at thinks that I'm in Chicago. And I couldn't move it anywhere in the United States. The idea behind being that we watch the Rams, and what I'm able to do is tell my computer that I'm in Los Angeles, and then I can watch a home game. It's not necessarily how VPNs are supposed to work, and I'm sure the NFL doesn't like it. But that's the reality. You can do that. That's the idea behind a true VPN. But Apple is coming out with their own.
And what VPN are you using?
I use ExpressVPN. There's a lot of good ones out there, and ExpressVPN, Charlie over at the school uses it, been using it for years, so I did a little bit of research. I'm not saying it's the best one, but I was happy with what I found in my research. I think it's $99 a year, and iPad, iPhone, Mac. It's and I can turn it on and off through my menu bar. It doesn't slow down the network too much, so it works pretty good.
That's good to know about iCloud coming, so I'll keep an eye
Yeah,
out for that.
and you have to use Safari for it to work.
And that's my go-to is browser Safari.
Okay, perfect. Yep, then you'll be fine. And it's been in beta for several months, so I would assume that it's going to be. It'll probably, my guess is it'll probably come out when they come out with that thing for the where you can use your trackpad on your iPad and iPhone at the same time, or iPad and Mac.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
one other point about VPNs,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I believe it's gonna be called private, or it's called now private relay.
Yeah, private relay. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I used a couple different ones. I ended up with one called IPVanish. For a couple of reasons, it works, and they don't keep logs like some of them do. And I use it for testing on our website to make sure certain countries can't get into our website.
Nice. Yeah.
But the other really nifty reason I use it is because they have an app that runs on an Apple TV or Amazon Fire Stick, so that when I'm traveling, I take my Amazon Fire Stick with me, plug it into the TV in the hotel, or I was just on a cruise, I plugged it into the TV there. And I'm over in Europe, and I can still watch my local TV shows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's nice that it works on the Apple TV and the Fire Stick and all that.
And it's $100 a year too.
Yeah. That's the thing with VPNs. Again, just like the antivirus, you have to be careful. These companies know, what they can get you. And I believe ExpressVPN is good, and it sounds like the other one that he mentioned was good. But there are some of them out there that, in addition to blocking your traffic, and they don't sell it, but they also keep track of where you are, and they go and sell. They do some as developers companies do. They're not all 100% pure. So yep, they sell. That's it. They sell their logs. So you have to be careful, and I believe ExpressVPN is good. And what was the one that you said, Chuck?
IPVanish.
IPVanish. So you have to be a little careful. So
You also have to remember to turn off your VPN if you're doing any kind of banking, because they will not accept who you are if you're going through a VPN.
Yeah, what I found out when I leave my VPN on is, if I do a search on Google or whatever, all of a sudden I get those little things where I have to say, click on the stoplights and things. I get a little bit more of that, and basically, yeah, they're confirming who you are. Now, I haven't had a problem with ExpressVPN in my bank, but yeah, it does. It depends on the site, and I think it's not going to be, if you use a VPN and you run into problems. We were running into a problem at the school, and that's Charlie's like, I can't get into this site. I can't get into this site, and I'm sitting there blaming the network because I hate the network over at our school. And lo and behold, it's because his VPN was on, and it caused a conflict with the network that we have at the school. And it's just, so you just have to remember that you have it and turn it off. If you run into a problem, the first thing you do is turn it off, and then turn it back on when you're done. So.
Do we all have a VPN? I'm not familiar with that.
No, I don't think most people do. And I don't know if it's really that necessary. Like, say, everyone has, it's a perfect, what Chuck said, he can simulate that he's in a different country, because basically what you're doing is you're telling the server that you're in a different country. And then he can see what.
I run the Apple user group website for the villages, so I want to test it.
Yeah.
Somebody from China
can't get in. Exactly. Yep. So he can tell it that he's, so there are use case, perfectly good use case scenarios. Some people are just private, very private, so they don't want any tracking at all. Well, you could use iCloud, Apple Private Relay, or whatever they're going to call it for that kind of stuff, as long as you use Safari. And you go with, something like these VPNs for other things. Do I think most people need it? Probably not. I use it to watch a football game, kind of thing.
So when you say, are you paying for iCloud, are you talking about paying for iCloud storage?
Yeah, so if you're paying 99 cents a month, you'll be able to get this. Yep. And as long as you're using Safari, you're gonna get the benefits, a lot of the benefits of a VPN. Not all of them, but a lot of the benefits.
Does that mean I may be able to buy a lotto ticket if they don't allow gambling in my state?
I guess maybe you could. Michigan, I believe they allow it, so you could try it. Yeah.
I could use a couple $100 million.
What state is that?
Alaska.
Wow.
Dan, can I make one quick comment?
Sure.
I don't use a VPN, I don't use a antivirus either. I was just curious as to what advice an Apple genius might have. But along with that, it's very important to keep up with your updates.
Oh, yes.
Recently, there have been a number of very sophisticated
Yes.
attacks on all systems, including Apple and Microsoft.
Yep.
If you're not up to date on your updates, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and Apple, especially with the iPad and the iPhone, most of those updates. I know a lot of people don't like to update their software, but in a lot of cases, they're not updating the user interface or anything like that. It is security, vulnerability. In fact, they just sent one out. And this is where I can get on my soapbox. Basically, there's one browser on an iPhone, Safari. Yes, you can download Chrome. Yes, you can download Firefox, DuckDuckGo, all those, but they all use Safari Kit or whatever. Now, WebKit. They all use WebKit as the back end. Like on a Mac, if you download Chrome, it's using Chromium. When you download Firefox, it's using Gecko as the back end engine. They all have their own different rendering, and Microsoft Edge uses Chromium. Brave is Chromium. But on the iPhone, everything is WebKit. And what somebody found was a vulnerability in WebKit itself. So what happened is no matter what browser you used, you were open to that vulnerability, even though you might be using Chrome or Brave or DuckDuckGo or whatever, because they all use the same WebKit backend engine on the iPhone and the iPad. So Apple quickly came out with a patch, and they fixed it. But it goes along, that's what people are saying, is like this shows that the iPhone and the iPad is how great it is, but it also is stifling stifling. Now that's where I get on my soapbox, but that's where it's stifling innovation. Someone can't come out with a better browser because they have to use Safari's back-end engine. I can't come out with let's just say, Safari's stuck in the gas engine world, which, and somebody says we can do it better with motors and electric engines. And Apple is saying, well, you can put a shell and make it all look pretty, but you're still going to use our engine in the back end. You cannot use that battery,
But if somebody that's been identity theft, believe me, it pays to make sure that that door is closed.
Yeah. Yep. So, you keep up with your updates. And same thing with the Mac. I'll end it with this. This was, I think, a couple of years ago. There was a big security, thing with the Mac. And generally speaking, Apple doesn't really push, what they did is they push some update. They do have the power to do this on the Mac, and this is a good thing. They don't abuse it. They did something on the Mac, and it took everything, it removed stuff from your Mac. Typically, you don't see that from Apple. Once you put it on your Mac, it's your Mac. But it was that bad of a case where they were able to go. So yes, you want to keep those updates going. Most of the time, they're security updates because these hackers, they are good. And so it's a cat and mouse game. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see what else we got here. My magic mouse is intermittent. Tried 3 different ones. Any suggestions? And this is on a new MacBook M1 Doug emailed. And basically, I think his MacBook is 6 months old. Because that's the first thing you think of is, well, maybe it's an old MacBook. Make sure it's updated. Well, it's updated. So that goes to number 1. The first thing that I would recommend doing is make sure that everything's updated. And then he also did the second thing. If you have a second mouse or whatever, try it. And he tried it with 3 different devices, 3 different mouse, and it came up with the same problem. So that tells me that it's not the magic mouse. It could be, as Chris knows, we found out that she's having a problem with these hard drives and they keep crashing. And even she took it to Apple, and Apple verified that the hard drives are bad. Western Digital is no longer my recommended hard drive based on our experience there. But typically, if something fails with 3 different products, that tells you that the product is not necessarily the problem. It's not the magic mouse. It could be, but in most cases it isn't. So that means that it may be the computer. But it's a brand new computer. So what do? So what I did a little bit of research on this. And essentially, what you're going to want to do, if you're using Big Sur or older, when you have Bluetooth in the menu bar, so I'm going to add Bluetooth to my menu bar. Let's see here. This is going to be under, you'd think I would know these system preferences. Yeah. And show Bluetooth in the menu bar. So this wouldn't work for him because I'm sure he's using Mac OS Monterey, but it's kind of show you what you can do if you're using an older OS. When you go up under Bluetooth here, you can see all of your different Bluetooth devices. Well, if you hold down the Option and Shift key and then click on it, you're going to see more information. One of the options here, if you're not using macOS Monterey 12.1, it was actually available in the original version of macOS Monterey, there was an option here to reset Bluetooth. So then what you'll want to do is basically reset your Bluetooth. You could also turn this on and off, but I would say it sounds like Doug kind of knows what he's doing there, and he's done everything right. So the next thing would be reset your Bluetooth. So obviously, you can't do that when you're using macOS Monterey. How do you reset the Bluetooth when you're using macOS Monterey? So what I found, actually kind of ironic, I do like Clean. People have heard me talk about it. Clean My Mac. It's by MacPaw. It's not an antivirus, but it just kind of keeps your Mac clean. And they had something. They have a nice blog with little tips and things like that. So Bluetooth errors here. And essentially, he kind of goes through some of these things. But where is it? Reset the Bluetooth. That's what you're going to see is reset the Bluetooth module. But in Monterey, they took that away. So then what you have to do is, let's go search for Monterey. And there's coding. It's just a little terminal right here. It's simple. This little tip here. Basically what you need to do, this is be the next step for Doug, would reset the Bluetooth module. And the way that you do that is open up the terminal app. The terminal app is an application. If I go to my applications here, and we go over to utilities, there's going to be an application called Terminal. So basically what this will do when I open this up, this is where we can get into a lot of trouble. So I say this, you have to be a little careful. But it's pretty simple to do here. You're going to see that it says sudo. You just type in sudo pkill Bluetooth D. So sudo means super user. So you are like the administrator, blah, blah, blah. When you type in sudo, it's going to ask for the password to the computer. So you type in sudo, all one word. You could just copy this. So if I were to take this and copy it, and then I go over here to paste it, you're going to see it's in there. And now when I hit return, it asks for my password. So I type in my password. And essentially what it will do is it will kill Bluetooth and restart it. So it's almost like unplugging it and plugging it back in. And that's what I would recommend doing next is to, kill the Bluetooth module. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore under the Bluetooth Apple menu here if you're using macOS Monterey, but you still can do it. It's pretty simple. It's safe. You're not, as long as you stick with this, just go sudo and really, I found another MacPaw, but you could just say, reset Bluetooth macOS Monterey, and there are a number of websites that say this is how you do it. And you can see this was introduced with 12.01. So for some odd reason, Apple removed it. But
turning it off.
Turning it off, you could try, and that might work. Sometimes it's kind of like sometimes my iPad doesn't work with my system that I have set up here. So what I have to do is I have to turn it off and turn it back on. But in other cases, what I have to do is I have to force. It's just like unplugging it. Sometimes you just want to unplug that Bluetooth module. If you, we've all seen it to where we shut it down, something down, and it starts back up, and we still have the same problem. But sometimes when you just unplug it, it gets rid of it. So that's basically what you're doing here. It's not something I would recommend on a daily basis, but it might fix the problem. It's obviously something with the Bluetooth. Outside of that, being that it is, I'd be curious to know, is Doug here? Is that Doug Lee? I'm curious if it's a Mac Mini. I also saw that the Mac Mini M1s were having an issue with Bluetooth, and Apple is trying to fix it with software. So make sure that your computer is up to date with the latest macOS Monterey. But it does seem to be, at least in earlier versions of macOS Monterey and the M1 Mac Mini, there were some issues. I don't know if that carried over to the other devices or not, but those are some things to make sure it's updated. Try to kill the Bluetooth. That's pretty much all I have on it.
And a quick comment on Bluetooth as well.
Mm-hmm.
Before I updated to Monterey, I was having issues with my AirPod Pro being a little flaky, turning on and off. So I did the little Bluetooth turn off and on trick, and that helps sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Since I upgraded to Monterey, it's been more consistent connecting on Bluetooth.
Okay.
But even then, occasionally it irritates me. And I found this little app called Tooth Fairy. It just sits in the menu, and it's kind of like a turn, or I don't know if it's doing a pseudo thing, but it's turning it off and resetting it so that it finds my AirPod Pro again.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Bluetooth Mac. Tooth Fairy on the App Store.
Yeah. I think there's paid up. I have a free one for some reason. I'm not sure.
Oh, it looks like I've downloaded it before. Oops, I lost it. Yeah,
I
I've
don't know if you
downloaded
already
it.
paid for it.
Yeah, I can't tell what the price is because I've already downloaded it, but yeah. Workaround issue with Mac OS 12 where sometimes it's impossible to add a Bluetooth device. So apparently it seems like I'm seeing a consistent thing with Mac OS Monterey and Bluetooth. So hopefully they'll get it fixed down the road, but this could be another option to try is this Tooth Fairy. I don't know what the price is, but seems to be getting good reviews. So
I've been pretty happy with it.
good. There we go. Perfect. Thanks. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? And let's see here. How do I synchronize multiple emails? This is from Melissa. Is Melissa here? I don't see her name at all. So basically, I'm wondering what emails should synchronize on their own. As long as you're using an IMAP server, people have heard me talk about that, and pretty much any email these days are IMAP. You had IMAP and then you had POP. Real quick, what POP did is it kept all the mail on the server, and then when you connected the mail, it downloaded it to your Mac or your iPad or your iPhone, and then it didn't synchronize anywhere. So you could go to another device and it wouldn't keep it in sync. That POP does. So you want to make sure that you're using an IMAP server, and most everything is IMAP. Apple's IMAP, Microsoft, Google. I even believe that Xfinity and Comcast, they were always the worst. But I even think that those are now IMAP as well. What I would recommend doing is you can always get your mail online. So go on to whatever it is. Let's just say it's Google. Go on to gmail.com and make sure all your mail is there. If it's all there, then what I do is I would recommend removing the account from your computer or your iPad or your iPhone, your device. We'll just go with your device, and then re-add it back in because all the mail is on the server in the first place. But I'd be curious to know what service it is. And these are the things that it was a little bit of a light bulb went off in my head today as I'm preparing for this with these smaller, not as many questions. My goal now is to also do a little bit of pre-work with asking the person a little bit more questions before the AMA. So today was the first day I kind of really looked at these questions, but in the future I can look at them further ahead of time, and hopefully I can ask Melissa what is her service, and then I can do a little bit of prep work even further, to keep these a little bit more accurate and all that. But essentially, make sure you can get your mail online. Just log on to Safari, Chrome, or whatever, Gmail, iCloud, Outlook, whatever, Yahoo, whatever it is. If all your mail is online, you're good. It's all on the server. Then what you can do is remove that account from your Mac. And the way that you would do that is just go to your system preferences, and there's going to be internet accounts here. And I would just go and remove.
You can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. So I'm in my system preferences, and we go over to internet accounts, and this is where you can remove your accounts. So from here, this one's inactive, but basically I'd be able to remove it. You can also do this in the Mail app. But just remove it and then re-add it. And most likely everything will all work after that.
Yeah, and one other question, kind of related to this. Why can't you see the same folders in the sidebar with each, say between the iPad and the...
You should be able to. What is the service that you use? Is it a Google account or Apple or iCloud?
It's a local GCI, but then Apple Mail is...
Okay. Well, Apple Mail won't necessarily, what Google does is it uses, I believe it uses tags. It doesn't necessarily use folders. And Google always struggled with Apple Mail with that kind of thing. But it's getting better. But a lot of times what people recommend doing is using Google's mail client instead of Apple's mail client. Apple and Apple Mail app and Google sometimes don't see eye to eye. And it's only because Google uses a little different method. It doesn't use the traditional folders. But outside of that, I can't say off the top of my head, with the, when you're using a local service out there, but it should match. If I go and add a folder to my mail app here, it will go and add that same folder over to my mail app on my iPad and my iPhone because it keeps it all in sync. I guess what I would do is when you add a folder, I would try a couple things to experiment. Add the folder through the mail app, and that is basically you just go to your inbox here, and if I go to mailbox, I can go and create a new mailbox here. And then I can select which account, so I just go like that, and I say I want it in my iCloud or whatever it is. And then once I do that, I'm sure with your local service, you can probably go into Safari and check your mail, online mail. Again, most mail clients, you can do that. See if it added it to the server. If it added it to the server, then we know that your Mac is communicating with the server. So then the next step would be see if it added it to the iPad or to other devices. If it didn't add it to the other devices, then what I might do is, again, disconnect, delete the account, and re-add it because it's all in the cloud anyway, so you can easily just disconnect it and start fresh. What you can also do, it doesn't really, I don't see too many people doing this too much anymore, but under Mailbox, you're going to see we have rebuild. You could try to rebuild it, and that will rebuild the mailbox. And then I believe there is one other thing here we can do. Oh, synchronize. So right now I just have one account. But if I had multiple accounts on here, what I would do is I would select the account. So I would select my local service. In my case, it might be Comcast or whatever. And then I just go over and synchronize and see if that helps. So a couple of things.
Sometimes I've had that problem in my sidebar where I'll have a caret that's showing me my drop-down folders on one device, but not showing me the drop-down.
Yeah, and I
have to turn the caret.
I will say, let's see, I'm looking at my iPad here.
That little symbol.
I'm going to see if this, let's see here. So, that's not what I want. And personal. Yeah, no, I'm going to show you my iPad here, and you can see I have I do have the same folders here. On my, if I go back over to my Mac, it is the same folders. But on my personal device, I do have a disconnect as well. Some of my folders up here in this area here do not match what is on, and I just haven't gone around tried to figure out fix it, because I'm lazy.
Does it have to be exactly the same name? Because when I had issues with Comcast at our house a month ago, because I use AOL, I had it under AOL, and so then I took it off, and over at the Apple Store, when we put it back, we put it under just my email name, and on my phone it shows AOL, but on my MacBook it shows my email name.
No, it shouldn't matter. It's just using an AOL account, so it shouldn't matter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, I just had this issue with Earthlink. I use Earthlink using webmail.
Yeah.
Earthlink, and I had to change my password, my main password. They required it, and so that was fine, and my Mac worked fine. But then it could not send anything out, any emails out from my phone. And this went on, and I did chat, and I didn't get anywhere. And so I created another Earthlink account to kind of play with.
Yeah.
And that new Earthlink account only had the current emails from the time that I created it until, so it had like a page instead of my 5,000 that I had before.
Right.
Okay, so I finally was able to get the outgoing thing to work because I had to put the password in the outgoing part. So I did that, went back and deleted the little one I had created with 1 or 2 pages of emails, and discovered now on my Mac and on my iPad, I only have the new little short list of emails, and the only place I can access my full history is on my phone. And so I talked to Earthlink, and they said, well, if you use POP, it downloads it and then it deletes it from the
Yep.
server. But none of my emails are supposed to be deleted from Earthlink server. So I don't. So anyway, I just threw up my hands and said,
Yeah, that's the Earthlink. You know, it's an older system, and they might still be using POP, and that's the problem with POP.
They're using POP.
Yep, there's nothing you.
Nothing I can do.
Nope.
They're gone. I mean, they're on my phone, but they're gone from my Mac. My
Yep.
folders, however, with all my saved stuff in
Yep.
folders, that's on my Mac.
That is a limitation of POP, and basically what you want to do is see if you can get them on an IMAP. Get it. You know, sometimes you can just reload it and delete it. Yeah, or I hate to say it, but switch to like Gmail or something like that. But I know that's a lot of work, but you know.
But then I got thousands.
Right, I know. Yeah, yeah.
What do I do with it? So, okay.
Yep.
Their POP is bad news.
Yeah, POP is bad. Absolutely. All right. So Martha asked, when is the best time to purchase a new Apple product? And really, you know, it's one of those things where I'll tell you when the best time to purchase an iPad is right after I buy one. You know, one of those things. It's Murphy's Law kind of thing. But in all honesty, you know, Mac Rumors here has a buyer's guide, and it's buyersguide.macrumors.com. You could just Google Buyer's Guide Mac Rumors. That's how I found it. Or when's the best time to purchase Mac Rumors? This has been around for a long time. And essentially what they do is they grade everything. So here they're saying, don't buy an SE, because they monitor the product line and they know what the average time that a product is out there. And they're like, this thing's ready for an update, or they're just going to discontinue it. So don't buy it. Where, you know, the iPhone 13, you know, we're halfway through the cycle. It's neutral. You could buy it. You know, we know when the new one's coming out. It's going to come out this fall. So if you can wait 6 months, but, you know, so you're okay with that. iPad Air, they're saying caution. Apple is having an event next month. Rumor has it they're going to introduce an iPad Air. So be very cautious. If you're buying a mini, buy now. They just introduced an iPad mini, I think like maybe not quite a year ago. And typically the minis, they don't revamp them every year. So it could be 2 or 3 years. So we're still at the beginning cycle of the iPad mini. So this buyer's guide here is a great, you can see when the releases are and all that. This buyer's guide is a great place to research when you need to purchase something. So let's see here. Do they have, where's the buyer's guide for? Oh, here we go. So I go to Macs here. I was looking for a Mac. Let's say you're looking for a Mac, you know, 14, 16-inch, you're safe buying one of those. But if you're going to buy a Mac Mini, again, the rumor is next month they're going to introduce a new Mac Mini. The iMac, rumor is they're going to introduce new iMacs. So Mac Pro, obviously, don't buy. They're going to probably come out with a new Mac Pro. Hopefully we'll see that next. I'm curious. I can't afford that, but I'm very curious at how fast it's going to be. So this buyer's guide is a great resource to see when you should buy something. And again, just take it as a rule of thumb, you know, a little bit caution and all that, and you know, kind of go from there. So I think this has been around for a long time, and I think it's a pretty good resource for looking stuff up. And all you have to do is just Google Buyer's Guide Mac Rumors or when to buy Mac Rumors, anything like that, and you'll be able to find it. There are other ones, other sites that do the same kind of thing, but Mac Rumors has been around for a long time, and I think they do a pretty good job. So that's when you can find out when. Or, you know, basically you could also use the old, when you buy it, they're going to come out with something new. So if you buy an iPad Air today, they probably will come out with one next month, and you know how it all goes. So, all right. Run out of space with Google Meets and Zoom. Why? That's a good question. I know they do use caching. You shouldn't be running out of space when you use these two, but maybe it's caching. So the first thing I would recommend doing, really the only thing I can think of, is go to Apple menu and then go to About This Mac, and you're going to see storage, and I have it in my list to come up with a lesson on this. When you go to storage, you want to make sure that you have enough space. That's the only thing I can think of, and here's where you can go and manage all of your space. So just click on any one of these and Apple will give you recommendations. So again, I'll show you. Let's close this window here and close this. So you just Apple menu, About This Mac, and then go to storage. You're going to see your hard drive space. It's calculating it. So I'm sitting pretty good yet. But if I was running low on space, I can go to Manage here. And Apple gives you recommendations of what you can do to minimize your space. Or what you can do is just go and, Documents. Here's a movie. Oh, I didn't know I had this movie here. I can go and delete it just by going down to delete it to free up space. So this is a good place to check your storage.
Is that where your movies are stored that you actually want to keep? Because I've got billions of movies in there, and
No, this is not this. I mean, right now this is telling me this is in Tulip Time assets. It's in some cryptic. It's probably for a slideshow for my keynote because I'm working on a new keynote tutorial. But basically, you can see where all your large files are. So it's not by folder.
If you get rid of this, if you deleted Tulip
You
Time
get
right now,
my slideshow would be, it would be out of that slideshow. So yeah, you have to be a little careful. Absolutely.
so if you delete videos that you see in there, is it actually removing them from your videos that you would normally see in your photos?
No, that would be in Photos. So I would go to Photos here.
It's an extra copy, like.
Yep.
Okay, because I'm afraid to delete these videos from documents, because I got a huge number, because I'm afraid I'm removing them from.
You are.
photos.
Well, you are. You have to be careful. You are removing them. This isn't just.
Photos.
These aren't duplicates or anything like that. So, if I go and open up Photos here and I remove it, it's going to remove it from my photos. Absolutely.
But if you remove it from where it is in documents, is it removing it from photos actually?
No.
Or is the documents one an extra copy?
I wouldn't call it an extra copy. It's something different. The Photos app, all of your photos, anything in your Photos app is going to be stored in this library here.
Okay.
So
I could clean up by getting rid of a whole lot of those.
right, if you have them sitting here in folders and you don't need them, anything that is in a folder. So I don't really have anything here. Oh, here's an image. This, I could get rid of this, and it will not remove it from my Photos app.
Not removed. Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
there we go. All right.
Dan, I brought that out because apparently this is not an unusual thing that's happening to other Mac users. So that's why I was wondering, is it just space? I figured it was space also, but it doesn't make sense if it's more than one or two people that are having weird.
Yeah, I did a little research on it, and I couldn't find anything. So you're the one who with the Zoom and the Meets and all that?
Yeah, I have a friend who's having this problem, and I'm trying to help her through
Okay.
this, and I haven't been able to find anything.
I haven't. Yeah, if you find anything or if you find any more detail, just email me, and I'll see if I can find anything else out. But we have not. At the school we use Google Meets. That's and we have.
That's what I use with my students. I've never had that.
No, and those hard drives are 100. We get the smallest hard drives, to keep the cost down. So I don't. It's the only thing I could come up with is the hard drives because it does use a little bit of caching, but.
And if your friend is using a paid Zoom account, I would contact Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
All right. I believe this is our last question. Passwords. Sometimes I see more. How can I see the additional passwords? And I emailed Bill on this. Is Bill here? I left this for the last because I need a little more clarification. I'll just give you real quick here. I think there's a misunderstanding. You shouldn't have, when I go to my passwords here, I'm using Mac OS Monterey, so it's in my system preferences. But if you're using an older version of a Mac, it's in Safari's preferences. Doesn't really matter where it's at. It's the same thing. When I go to passwords here, so I'm looking at my passwords. When I click on one of these, let me, I need to make sure, when I click on one of these, hold on, I'm going to go back to me here. Make sure I don't show any passwords here. Okay, yep, we're good. So I clicked on, Google here, and essentially, I think I went over this a couple weeks ago too, with basically this password is being used on 2 different sites. I couldn't find where more was, so I emailed him and asked for a little more clarification, but I didn't get an answer back yet. But basically, these websites don't keep more than one password for a site, but it can keep the same password for multiple sites, if that makes sense. So you will not see the same username and password for a site here. It's always going to be something different, because what Apple will do is it'll ask you do you want to update it? And you say yes or no. It never asks you, do you want to keep this password in addition to your other password? You can't do that. There's only one password. So you can't have more than one password per site, but you can have one password on multiple sites. So I'm wondering if he's seeing this here. And maybe it can get a little confusing because in Google's world, this is really one site, accounts.google.com and www.google.com. But in our world, that's really the same site. It's Google. So we can it can get a little confusing. So if I hear back from him, I can do some follow-up on this, but essentially that's what it comes down to, is you can't keep more than one password for a specific site with Keychain. This is what this is using Keychain. So, all right, let's see. I think that is it. Oh, how do I access RIP Music? Okay, so this one came afterwards. She actually couldn't make it on the class, and I'm going to create a lesson on this. She ripped her music. She's using iTunes. Monterey no longer has iTunes. Big Sur no longer has iTunes, so now she's wondering how she can do that. Yeah. So what I'm going... Oh, you're here? Oh, hi. Yes, you're back.
But I know it's gone beyond time, so we could do it next week.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. I put it at the end, and also I do want to create, because I need to do some research on it, but basically you use the music app. I think I emailed you on that. But anyway, I'll come up with something on that, and we'll work on that.
Figure it out with the music app.
Yeah. So I'll come up with something on that. So, yeah. All right. I believe, Q&A. So does anyone have any questions? We'll try to keep this a little bit short here. So, yeah. Go ahead, Fran.
And the one about tap forums, if you wanted to address it.
Okay. So Dan, I use an app called Notability to create notes for my students.
Correct.
And then at the end of their class, I will send them notes. Well, since I got my new computer, I don't know if it has something to do with the new computer, but I have my iPhone 13. I've got my iPad Pro 12.9. I use my iPad Pro because I've got the Apple Pencil, so I use my Apple Pencil to mark work and whatnot. When I email them their work, it used to go to my Gmail account and everything was hunky-dory. Now I'm getting emails back from students saying, "Are you using a new account? Because I got your email, like there was a warning on their end that Fran doesn't usually use this account or whatnot." I don't know exactly what they were doing.
How are you sending it, through the Mac or through the iPad?
Through the iPad under Share. But what I have to do now is it's going to I'm a treasurer of the Ontario Registered Music Teachers Association.
Right.
And I had to create a Gmail account for the treasurers. And so now it's going through the treasurer's account. So I have to go in and physically take it out of there and type in, well, not type in, but just copy my Gmail account.
This is,
I can't figure out what's happening.
I don't know why, the Mac shouldn't have changed it, Notability shouldn't have changed it, but this is where, if you're using the Mail app, so here I'll show you where I went to settings on my iPad, and if you go over to Mail, you can go and set it's at the very bottom, you're going to see default account. So make sure that default account is set to the email address that you want to send it from. So then by default, it'll always send it from that email address.
So you went to settings and then to
Mail, yep.
Oh.
And it's at the very bottom. I don't know why that would have changed, but,
I don't know.
you know, that's how you can set it to where it will always use that mail account.
Oh, and it is, it's changed. You know
Okay.
why, I think, because, well, anyway, it doesn't matter why.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. That'll make my life so much
All right.
easier.
So I see 3 hands, so we'll go with these 3 hands, and then we'll call it a night. All right, Deborah.
Then we'll help you. We'll stay and help you.
All right, Deborah.
I put this in the chat, but this is just a very quick question.
Yeah.
What do you do, or how do you feel about the fact of apps that are in the app switcher that you've allowed location services while they're being used? Let's say maps, let's say, even messages. Do you force close those apps even though Apple has said these are in frozen states, they don't really use much? And I'm not worried about battery. I'm more worried about background attempts at information.
It depends. It depends on the app. I will go with messages. I trust anything from Apple. So Apple can know my location anytime they want because I do believe that I trust them. Facebook. No, I turn that off. And where you can turn that on and off, I'll show you on my iPad, is privacy here and location services. So basically, you can set what these apps do, and you maybe want to go through here. So now this is my demo account, but you can see here Dark Sky, which is a weather app. I want it to be always on because then it can give me alerts. So it depends on the app. If it's a shopping app, there is absolutely no reason why they need to know my location when the app is, when I'm not using it. When I'm using it, sure, but not when I'm not using it. So I will make sure it's only when it's while using. So you kind of, depending on what the app is and the company, if it's, if it's a free app and it's a really good one, free apps, people don't make money off of free apps. They make money off of selling, so typically you kind of have to watch that a little bit. So
you do force close things.
I wouldn't force close them. What I would do is, if they're in the background, I do trust them. Yes, I do, because I do trust Apple's that they are freezing.
Right, but the Gmail app or the Google Maps,
Mm-hmm.
you close those.
No, I don't.
You don't.
Mm-mm. I don't force quite a lot of things. Unless.
I force put my banking app whenever I'm done with it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily hurt anything. So yeah, but I personally don't. But that's just me. Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Neil, you're up next. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
I think he's frozen.
See him?
Okay, got it.
There we go.
Hi everybody, I got rid of my iPhone 6 at the Apple Store and bought an iPhone 11, and don't yell at bells and whistles at me. And they had me back up my iPhone 6 to the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
then they had to restore it into my iPhone 11.
Mm-hmm.
Everything worked fine except my music. And what I want to do is I want to delete my music library from iPhone completely and start all over. I don't know how to delete my iPhone library.
Okay, so you want to delete your
iPhone library, music library.
okay. Probably the easiest way would be to plug it into your computer. And when you plug it in your computer, if you're using Big Sur or later it might even be Catalina, open up a Finder window, and then when you're going to see your iPhone there, and then you can go into the music tab and delete everything. That's how I would do it.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yep. And Chuck.
Yeah, I did.
Hi.
I usually start talking, I'm muted. So in addition to the Apple User Group website, I also have a personal website where I have my billiards leagues and tournaments and the stats from those, and all that information right now I have in various Excel spreadsheets.
Right.
I'm in the midst of going through your tutorials, which are very, very good, by the way. On
Thank
the
you.
platforms. Really nice. Because one spreadsheet in particular is literally, I mean, it goes back to 2013, and we have sessions every 6 weeks, so 9 years of 6-week sessions. It's a lot of data.
Right.
And I have various, right now I just do the reports and I stick them up as PDF files on the website, or I have, since it's a WordPress website, I have a table press plugin and I put the information in there via CSV files. But I would love to be able to use tap forms and upload the data there and have a user, for instance, be able to pick their name and then choose dynamically what they did, last year, and have access to the database on the back end. Is that something tap forms offers?
No, because that'd be something more web-based kind of thing. Ask me in a few weeks, what I love tap forms, don't get me wrong. It's a great application, and it's a great bento replacement, blah, blah, blah. But what I started experimenting with yesterday, because I ran into limitations of platforms, all of my tutorials are stored in platform emails or tap forms. I've been playing around with Airtable. And I'm pretty pleased with it, and that you could do that is online, so you would be able to do some stuff online. So as I play with it, I may have some more information on it, and as I play with it, I may have. But short answer, Tap Forms 5 would not do what you need it to because it's not online.
I saw this something they had about IBM Connect or something.
Yeah, then they would have to have Tap Forms 5, and they're going to have access to everything in the database. So it's not like a per record, not like a privacy kind of thing. So it can get you have to be a little careful with that.
So I'm sorry, what was the one you just mentioned? You were checking out
Airtable. Been around for a long time. I didn't like it because it was very spreadsheet-like. That's what I love about FileMaker Pro and Bento and TapForms 5 is I'm more of a visual kind of thing. But they've recently introduced some new stuff, and I'm plugging away at it, and it's pretty impressive. Maybe I'll show once I get it all set up, what I can do with it. So far I'm pretty impressed, and nothing against TapForms 5, but I hit the limitations with what I wanted to do. And
do you know off the top of your head, is that Airtable back-end relational database?
So it works a lot like TapForms 5. It is relational. You can link different tables together. It's not necessarily like FileMaker Pro. FileMaker Pro, I think, is great with relational databases. I don't care for how TapForms 5 does it, and Airtable kind of works the same way. But what you can do is create groupings and things like yes. So in short answer, yes, you can do relational databases, link them together per field and all that. So yep, and it's all online. They have a free. I'm using the free version, and I think for most people, the free probably would work. It handles up to 1,200 records or something like that. And then it's $10 a month if you need to go with more. I'm doing the free right now, just trying it all out because I only have about 500 records but I just before I started here tonight, I found a way that I could export. I have about 1,600 lessons on my site, and what I'd like to do is put those all into a database so I can kind of see which ones are the oldest. And it's hard to manage 1,600. And I got some old stuff on there. I'd like to start redoing some of that stuff. Basically, I want to do that through a database, and that's where I think Airtable will be able to help me. So, but you can sign up for a free account and try it out. And it's pretty neat. If you like spreadsheets, it's going to be very familiar to you. I'm more of the GUI kind of thing, but it does have some pretty cool stuff. So
I love Excel, and it's
then Airtable will probably you'll feel right at home with it. So
now you realize, of course, that I'm not going to finish your tutorial.
That's all right. No, that's all right. I don't, I used Tapforms 5 and it's great. And I still think it's great for a lot of people. If you go to Airtable, a lot of people would be like, ugh, kind of thing, where Tapforms 5, I think, is a little more user-friendly. But, you lose a little bit of the power, and Airtable is pretty powerful, and especially like what you want to do. I think you can share different views. You can create different views, and then you can share those views with other people.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Yep, and that's what you can do with Airtable.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. All right. So I think that's it. We are good to go. Next week, I am going to be having a class on, like I said, I'm kind of redoing some of my older stuff and Keynote. I'm going to be doing a class on Keynote for the iPad. I never even created a tutorial on how to use Keynote for the iPad. So this will be all new. Currently on my site, I am redoing my Keynote for the Mac, breaking apart, I'm re-recording what I did for the class, but so you're going to see some new lessons coming out on Keynote for the Mac. And then I'm also going to be doing probably a shorter tutorial on the iPhone for Keynote. Even though you can create a presentation with Keynote on the iPhone, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's great for editing. So you can use the iPhone to edit something. So next week I'm going to be talking about the iPad, and I might touch a little bit on the iPhone. And then I also have some lessons from questions, the music app and how to get them on your music on the iPhone. So I have some other stuff that I'm going to be doing as well. So that is that covers it. So thank you, everyone. And if you want to stick around, we can try to see if I can figure out this delay thing. I don't know if I can or not, but you're welcome to stick around and help me out. Outside of that, thank you and have a good weekend. And we'll see you hopefully next week. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's still recording. I'm not going to change anything, but I will edit this last part out when I put it out. I put it online. But basically, what you're seeing right now is my audio is ahead of my video, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me reconfigure here. And I am going to try a couple things first. There's a little slider here that I can. Is that doing anything when I change that?
No.
No difference at all. Okay. Like I said, there's a few different things that I can try here. What about? Let's see, map. That's all good. And see, we're good there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is Ecamm Virtual Audio. Turn that off. And
So that image on the right is the regular Zoom image at 320.
yeah, well, if I go to, how about?
Now you're off completely.
You're muted or something.
Is that okay? That was I should have said that. I'm going to try something. I might be muted. Yeah. So right now, what you're doing is you're looking at an HD screen of me. I think it's 1020 or something like that. It's considered HD, and that's so when I go to my Mac, it's you can see high res and all that. So if I go to, let's try this. I'm going to stop that share. I'm sharing my screen here. Let's go with the new share here. Let's try this. I'm going to go with basic. And let's see here. I think it is. You can. How about that? Nope. Now you can see my overlays and all that, correct?
Yeah.
So we don't want that one. But how is the delay on this?
Now you're great.
Better.
Okay, that's good to know. Let me get you to a different screen so you don't see all my little overlays and all that.
It's a hair off, but not.
Yeah, it's a hair off.
Just a hair off. Okay, and that might be where that slider. So we'll come back to. I have a little slider that I'm playing around with. Okay, how about this? So you don't. Do you see my overlays anymore?
No,
Looks good.
anyway.
It's
And the
good,
voice is
and it's
good.
all, okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my computer, and how does the resolution look as I,
Yeah,
It's a little fuzzy.
It's a little fuzzy, but it's readable. Yeah, you can see
Yeah,
that
that's clear.
pixelation.
okay.
yeah.
And if I go to my iPad, that
Yeah.
looks,
You
that
can
looks,
see the pixelation a little bit, but it's readable. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's clear enough for sure.
Is it, yeah, so how about that? Is it clear enough? This is 720, so what Zoom allowed me to do is bump, because I'm a paying customer, they bumped it up to 720. So this is 720, and when I go to, in Zoom, I can actually do a high-res share. That is 1020, or 1080, sorry, and that's where I get that little delay. Let me try one other thing here. So we're getting, so this is good enough if I were to use this down the road, right?
I think you'll see that when you look at your recording.
Yeah.
You'll see it. Yeah, you'll see
Okay.
it.
We're going to try one other. I'm going to go back to my advanced setting here, second camera, and I'm going to optimize it for a video clip. This supposedly will fix it as well. And if I go to here, is there a delay?
Yes.
Yes,
It's back to, so it's that,
yes.
it's
a-
definitely that, which is what I was afraid of. And
But
so,
you're nice and sharp.
and everything is going to be clearer, correct?
Yes, that's sharper.
Yeah, much sharper.
But you have that
Delay.
delay. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't just look at your eyes and listen to your voice.
Yeah, it's let me try something here
That's
then.
nice and clear.
Yeah, that's generally this is what I use, and but we have the delay, so let me play around with this little audio thing here a
Does it
minute.
have anything to do with that original sound settings?
That's what I'm playing around with now. So
Oh, because I use it for music. I have to really fool around with that.
yeah, there's just a lot of, so let me look at my Zoom here. The microphone is set to Ecamm virtual audio, so that's what we want. Ecamm goes into there. I want my microphone to go into, but you can't, okay, this is where I'm running you. All right, I'm going to turn a setting off here. You probably won't hear anything, but what I want to do is see if I can get it to. All right, I'm just going to try something here. So it's going to be, my microphone's going to be muted. So boom, and you can't hear me, correct?
You're muted.
Okay, and if I go to Ecamm here, how about now? Can you hear me?
Still muted.
No, okay. And let's go with Ecamm virtual audio.
Still muted.
Still muted?
You have to fool around with your microphone.
Yeah. Still muted though, right?
Can't hear you.
Okay.
At least it's not out of sync.
So now we have to lip read.
Or read the text.
Read my lips. I'm actually not a Rams fan. I'm a Packers fan.
Ah.
You told us that last week, Steve.
Darn.
Yep. All right, you can hear me again now.
O-M-U-G, Steve. What's
We can
the
hear you
U-G?
again, yeah.
Yeah, go Rams. My wife was there were a few F-bombs and things going off. It was fun.
Well, that was a good game.
Yeah, now I will say my nephew did not play. Our nephew did not play. He was injured from 3 weeks ago. I'm looking at my stuff as I'm.
But he still gets a ring.
Still gets a ring, and he's still got that $150,000 bonus.
Wow. Cool.
And we're obviously just very excited for him. So.
Oh, yeah.
First time in a long while, the game was actually better than the commercials.
Yeah, actually, the whole
Right on. The commercials were not very good.
commercials were not very good. I didn't think so either.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
they're gonna
because
have-
we are from the older generation, because they said the halftime and some of that other stuff was geared more to a younger generation.
Right. Yep.
For sure it was.
My wife loved the halftime show. My aunt loved the halftime show.
I didn't.
Not my kind of thing.
Not my thing.
Play me some.
Well done halftime show.
I didn't. I thought also with the halftime show, like I go back to the old Prince. That's the gold standard when he was out there playing in the
For
rain.
sure, yeah.
He was playing to the audience, and the cameras were around. But with their setup that they had there, I thought it was pretty poor for the people that attended the game, because when they were in those houses, the people behind it
Yeah.
couldn't see what was going. They're really playing to the camera, not to the audience. So I thought that was a little poor. But
Yeah, that's true.
But there was no Clydesdales.
let's see.
I didn't like it.
Hip hop.
I didn't think that Clydesdale video was that good. I found it ahead of time. I still have some of the oldies that are my favorites.
Didn't see any
All right.
Clydesdale video. Was there one? Was there a Clydesdale commercial?
It was the very last one.
Yeah, it was towards the end. Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to play around, watch a few more YouTube videos. I have an idea of what's going on a worst case scenario. I know how to get it, but I do want to get it with the high res, so I'm gonna tinker with this. I am starting my class, my webinars 15 minutes early. I usually start the camera, so my goal with that, I should say that ahead of time, is I want to start my classes a little bit more on time. And maybe we have a little bit of the pre-chat, the coffee talk in the beginning. So if you want to join ahead of time, you can do that. I'll try to start it like 15 minutes early, if not earlier. And then we can also test a couple of things out before that, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to watch a couple videos, see if I have an idea, but I also have a rough solution for now. I can put it into a little bit of a lower res, which is good enough. And we'll go from there.
It's not a major problem.
No, but I'd like to keep it at the high res, and I know what it is doing. I'm trying to get that so essentially the software I use is Ecamm. And like I said earlier, what's happening here is my microphone is going into Ecamm. Well, actually what it's doing is my microphone is going straight into the Zoom. So that's why it's getting it first. Being that it's an HD, there's a slight delay. So what I need to do is I need to pump my microphone into Ecamm, and then Ecamm will then add a little bit of delay to it so it matches up with the audio, with the video. That's the idea behind it, is get this audio to be delayed just slightly so it matches up with it. And right now, if you were to look at my screen, I don't think I can show my screen here on this one. If you were to look at my screen, you would see that my microphone is going straight into Zoom, and I need to basically unplug those virtual cables from Zoom and say go into Ecamm, and then Ecamm will feed Zoom. So that's what I got to do. So
Good luck with that. Sounds great.
yeah.
Yeah, I think when you go to your
Will the link you sent out today be good for next week, for the 22nd?
Right. Yes. Yes. Yep. It will be. Yep. And that's going to be on Keynote for the iPad. So, all right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for staying on. And I got a little bit of a clarification here, so that's good. And outside of that, have a good weekend.
Goodbye,
Thanks for
everyone.
everything.
And bye, everyone.
All right, thanks.